Right. Hi, my name's Shane. I use she, her pronouns. This is going to be a one-shot of Trophy Dark by Jesse Ross, and we're running an incursion for Trophy Dark called the Paperflesh Advent by Speak the Sky. This game is part of the Gauntlet's online gaming calendar. You can find out more about that at gauntlet-rpg.com if that's something that you're interested in. And I might just start by getting each of the players to introduce themselves. So maybe just tell us your name, the pronouns that you use, and tell us if you've played Trophy Dark or kind of similar games before. I'm just going to go around the order I can see you on my screen. So, David, can I get you to start?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is David. I have not played Trophy Dark before, but I have played Cthulhu Dark, and so I'm interested to see what carries over and what's new.
Great. Daniel?
Hey, I'm Daniel. I use he, him, they, them pronouns. I have not played Trophy Dark, but I have played, what is it, a Rooted in Trophy game that is in development by Jamie for the Brinkwood system. So,
Awesome.
yeah, so I'm kind of familiar, but I will definitely need some handholding.
Sure. And Brian?
Yeah, I'm Brian, he, him, and I played Trophy. I don't remember if it was specifically Trophy Dark because there's a few versions, but they're not that different from each other. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So just by way of introduction, Trophy Dark is a dark fantasy game about doomed treasure hunters in a forest that does not want them there. And I think we're all clear about this, but it is worth emphasizing the doomed part. This is not a game where you look forward to succeeding and going home to live happily ever after. This will be a game about how your treasure hunters meet their ruin in that forest. The incursion that we're running today is called the Paperflesh Advent, and it's about the search for something called mellified man. And the text of the incursion tells us, or tells me to tell you, that there is a kind of real world basis for this, or at least an apocryphal basis. It was a kind of old fashioned Orientalist myth about a supposed kind of medicine found in Arab countries that was based on voluntary human sacrifice, where the sacrifice would eat only honey for weeks until all their excreta turned into honey. And after death, their body would then be steeped in honey and sealed to mummify over 100 years until it became a sweet medication capable of healing broken bones and other conditions. The incursion comes with content warnings for body horror, psychological horror, insects, unreliable narration, and potentially claustrophobia-inducing situations. I'd just like to add that it also includes references to illness. So part of the premise of the incursion is that the mellified man either is or is at least rumored to be capable of curing any disease. So we'll do lines and veils in a sec, and just let me know if that's not cool for you. I know a lot of people this year, for obvious reasons, have had boundaries around sort of disease content in their games. And yeah, so maybe we'll just go to lines and veils now. If you can open up the roll with me link that I sent you, if you haven't already, and you should see a safety tab on the left-hand side. I assume that you've all used lines and veils before, but just briefly, lines are content that we will completely exclude from the game. Veiled content is content that may come up in the game, but we're not going to focus on it. We're going to we're going to move past it quickly or fade to black or something like that. So if everyone's got the safety tab.
Where is that link?
In the email I sent a week ago. Do you want me to post it in the chat? I'll just pop it in the StreamYard chat for you. There you go. And I'll just give people a couple of minutes to mark anything that they'd like to include as a line or a veil. There's also, you'll see columns for asking first or enthusiastic consent, which you're welcome to use as well. And maybe just give me a thumbs up or a yes in the chat when you are done with that. Okay, so just to make sure we're all on the same page, what we've got is lines on racism, sexual assault, suicide, and homophobia. Those are the only things that I have marked on the page that I can see. So sorry, just bear with me for 1 sec. So that's what we're going to be working with for today. Obviously, if anything comes up during the game that you're not comfortable with, we can add lines or veils as we go. The other safety tools or main safety tools that we'll be working with today are the X card, which, if anything comes up in the game that's not fun or safe or comfortable for you, you can just say X, put an X in the chat, make an X symbol with your arms, anything like that, and we'll cut that material out or work around it. Just to let you know, I mostly won't be watching the stream while I'm running a game. So if somebody does visually indicate an X, I'd really appreciate it if one of the other players could verbalize that for me, just so I know. And of course, we also have the open door policy, meaning if you need to, you can just leave. That's totally fine. Just do what you got to do. The game will run under the Gauntlet Community Code of Conduct. And I think that's really all that I had by way of introduction. I guess just to let you know, I expect to take 5 to 10 minute breaks about on the hour. And of course, you're welcome to take any extra breaks that you need. Any questions about that kind of admin or intro stuff, or shall we move on and make some characters? All right, seeing some nodding and thumbs. Great. So on that same Roll With Me page, you should be able to find a tab for characters or to make yourself a character. You're going to need to reference the PDFs in the Google Drive that I also sent through in that email. So let me know if you don't have access to that. Your character basically just needs a name and some pronouns, an occupation and background, which will both give you some skills to use during the game, and a drive, which is the reason you are willing to risk near certain doom to recover the mellified man. You'll see one of the PDFs is the basic set of options from Trophy Dark, or from Codex Dark 2, where it was originally published. And the second set is specific to the Paperflesh Advent. You're welcome to combine them any way you want. I think the only thing that the Trophy Dark one has that the Paperflesh Advent doesn't is a list of suggested names, which is perhaps the most important part. You also have, you'll see there's a spot you can paste in a link to an image of your character if you have an idea of what they look like. That's optional. You don't have to do that. I might just give you a sec to work out your backgrounds and occupations before we talk about rituals. It is one of those things where you probably don't really want to double up, like you don't want 2 treasure hunters with the same occupation, so just talk to each other a little about what you're considering.
And just to confirm here, am I correct in thinking that this game has a decidedly dark fantasy tone to it? Just kind of thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Got it. Well, I've never played this before, so if any of you guys have more prior experience, I might let you take the initiative when it comes to deciding on occupations and backgrounds. I'm kind of okay with filling in whatever gaps we need.
Yeah, I don't have anything particular in mind. Brian, does anything jump out at you?
Sorry, I got a mouthful of food.
No, that's fine. That's exactly why I asked you.
I just got home from work, so thanks. No, I'm probably happy with anything as well.
For my part, I will say that I would prefer not to do tracker or agent, but any of the other four I could be just fine with.
Somebody's just going to have to break this deadlock and make a choice. I'm going to pick someone at random if we don't hit some decisions soon.
I was thinking about maybe doing a leech.
Sounds good.
Is that from? Oh, so that's from the basic set. Okay, and so we can do that, or the
I'm assuming
you can combine them. You can choose between them. Whatever works.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay, that's noteworthy. Okay. And what is the goal of this incursion exactly? Is it to uncover some kind of medicine or something to that effect?
Yeah, so the premise is that there have been these stories, these rumors circulating that someone is selling Mellified Man, a substance that is said to cure all diseases and ailments, and you have tracked it back to a kind of fabled flower glade called the Bleeding Kaleidoscope. And if you can find, if you could find so much as an arm or a leg, that would set you up for life. But if you can find the source, if you can find where this is coming from, the wealth is just incalculable.
Okay. In that case,
and you'll be picking a specific drive for your character.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, if no one has one preference or the other, I think that apothecary is very appropriate given the, the setup here. I can do a fine herbalist. All right.
Sounds good.
So I'll sign on with that.
All right. So we got an apothecary and a leech. I feel like my character was brought along by those two to. I'm thinking either robber or tracker.
Mm-hmm.
Which do you think you guys' characters would have reached out to?
I think probably a tracker would make sense. There's also sellsword in the regular character option, which may be what you're looking for. Also, I can definitely see us hiring a martial mercenary of some kind.
And just when you put your occupation into the field on Roll With Me, just also make sure you note down what the 3 skills that come with it are, because that's what's going to be kind of mechanically relevant during the game. I see that Daniel's background is as a faithless servant, which I love. I've Brian and David, what backgrounds were you thinking of?
Perhaps either debunked quack or bankrupted merchant, just depending on how much of a fraud I want this guy to be. I'm curious, what does rookery refer to in this game?
I really hoped you weren't going to ask me that. I Googled what is rookery this before the game, and a rookery is somewhere that you nest birds, but what rookery means as a skill is entirely unclear to me.
I mean, I think you got to take the clue from that you were a quack, so it must be some kind of like con man.
Yeah, so
snake oil salesman.
Right. Rook as a verb is to trick someone.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so defrauding, overcharging, swindling. So rookery is like just a
deception.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so it's basically swindling. Okay. Oh boy, I might lean towards that. Acquisition, is that more of a like diplomatic way of doing business, whereas rookery would be more of a deceptive way?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Okay. I'll make my someone who's difficult to trust. I'll go with debunked quack, and leave it to the rest of you guys if you think I will run and leave you behind when the going gets tough.
I hope so. I'm looking forward to it.
The chances seem good.
Right.
And Brian, do you have a background in mind? There we go. It just came up on my screen. So you're a retired soldier. Sounds good. So the drive is the next thing that you're all going to need, and that's like the overwhelming desire that's going to drive you through this incursion. That's going to make you keep going when other maybe lesser treasure hunters might abandon the quest.
I'm leaning a bit towards bribing the Flaxen Skin Hounds. Perhaps there's a warrant out for my arrest after some shady dealings, and this is the way I'm gonna get myself free.
Sounds good. All right. So we all have a drive. So the next thing that that is optional as part of your character creation is to take one or more rituals. So rituals are kind of spells that your character can do. You can start the game with up to 3 rituals, but you'll see that all of you have a ruin score that starts at 1. It's kind of marked as little dice-like boxes on the character keeper. For each ritual you start the game with, your ruin will increase by 1. So if you take 1, you'll start with a ruin of 2. If you take 3, you'll start with a ruin of 4. If your ruin ever reaches 6 in this game, your character will be lost. Quite likely deceased, but perhaps meeting some other worse than death type fate. So yeah, just have a look at those options and think about whether you'd like to take any of the rituals.
And you said we can take up to 3, but each one starts us off kind of 1 closer to that point where it's kind of like any Cthulhu Dork, it's like your insight maxes out, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, as you copy any rituals that you're taking into the character details, probably best to copy the text about what they do. Oh, Daniel going all in. I see. And maybe again, just post a done in the chat or a yes when you're satisfied with the rituals that you want to start with.
I love how quick it is to make characters in this game.
Well, if you want to have very lethal games, you need to be able to make characters quickly.
That's fair, right?
All right. So I think everyone has their basic character details now. David, you're still going to need a character name. There's a list of suggestions on the Trophy Dark PDF if you want to have a look there. But I might just get you each to introduce your characters in the order they appear for me on the roll with me. So, Daniel, can you just tell us briefly about Fionn?
Sure. So, Fionn is a curative. So I imagine that he is a highly skilled surgeon primarily. So his former occupation, I guess his occupation is leech. His background is faithless servant. I imagine that he was probably in the service of some noble, and he was paid or bribed or otherwise coerced into killing that noble over time through slow poisoning. And of course, when the noble died, he was implicated, and now he is off to find this treasure in an attempt to use it to secure his future at the Chirchin's court. He has a number of rituals, all of which are a little frightening in the context of his profession. Bind, siphon, and hollow. All of which do terrible things to people, primarily, or creatures. I guess this didn't come out right from its own body. I guess that's really all I know about Fionn right now.
Cool. So, I mean, we'll definitely learn more about these characters as we kind of adventure with them. David, do you want to introduce your character, or do you want another minute to figure out what they're going to be called?
Yeah, sure. So my character, I suppose we're going to go with the pronunciation Theodan, and he is an apothecary by trade, but the truth of the matter is that his purported cures are nothing but snake oil, essentially. And he has been quite recently run out of town due to a business dealing that went terribly wrong, and is essentially got a warrant out for his arrest and potentially execution, if not long-term imprisonment. And so this is kind of the last chance that this guy has to bribe the hounds to get off of his trail and to make a clean getaway and perhaps start anew in a different town.
Great. And Brian, is it Baso or Basso?
Basso? Basso? Yeah. Basso was a soldier when he was younger. While in some whatever foreign land that army was sent to, found his wife And once he was able to retire as a soldier, was able to bring her home with him and start a family. But I think whatever land he found her in, there's now tensions with what that nation, and her and my children are not being treated very well, or not not very welcome, and I need to get them out of here, and need to buy passage through the Gallows Pass for me and my family. So I'm trying to take a job that can maybe get me some quick some money much quicker than normally I'd be able to earn.
All right, sounds great. So we'll just kind of talk through the rules as we go, like as things come up. I think is the easiest thing. Are there any questions before we kick off? Anything anyone want to say? All right. So this incursion, like many Trophy Dark incursions, starts with a poem. I am radically self-conscious about trying to read poetry online, but I'm going to give this a crack nonetheless. So here we go. I heard a far tale from a traveller. I heard of the mellified man. I heard of the sweet panacea that cannot be found in this land. I saw only rot in the city. I saw all its glories dissolve. I saw death's pale face in each mirror, a trophy too withered to hold. So I went out into the forest. I went through the veil of black leaves. I went out to cultivate heaven, a trophy till sunlight shall cease. And they came, the aging, the desperate. They came to see hope in my plan. They came to partake panacea, a trophy we built hand in hand. But fate gives its gifts without mercy, our fortunate labours exposed. Under the earth, singing so sweet, a trophy in regal repose. For if man can be panacea, imagine where this reagent will lead. We will escape ignorant flesh, and transcendence shall be our trophy. So, you have come to the verge of the Bleeding Kaleidoscope, which is a fabled flower meadow so tortuously dazzling that people say even an angel could get lost among the colours and never return. And we kind of covered this before, but the reason you've come here is that back home, someone or someones have been selling something that they call mellified man. And people talk of kind of crystallized scraps of skin and candied flesh. And what people say is that these unthinkable delicacies can cure any ailment or injury. Not everyone believes that. Your characters may or may not believe that. But enough people are willing to pay like that, like it really works, that even if you could find just a limb or a small piece of a body, that would be enough to set you up for life, satisfy your drive, let you live in comfort for the remainder of your days. And you have reason to believe that these fragments of mellified man have been coming from the Bleeding Kaleidoscope. You think that somewhere inside is where they are making or harvesting or whatever it is that they're doing to produce this mellified man. And what you're seeing now on the outskirts, so you've kind of headed into the forest to the place where you think the Bleeding Kaleidoscope will start. And you found something that you'd heard about, but you'd heard rumors, but you see that it's real and it's much bigger than you had ever imagined. And what it is you see is a kind of shanty town that has grown up around the outskirts of the Bleeding Kaleidoscope. And the scent of sickness hangs heavy in the air. And you kind of start to realize, people are looking towards you as you head up towards them. These are people who themselves aren't really, capable of heading on in themselves to try and find the mellified man, but who desperately need some sort of a mellified miracle to survive, to heal the various poxes and cancers and things like that they're suffering. And they are starting to move towards you as you head into this part of the forest. What do you do?
So these folks are of a seemingly downtrodden and sickly kind of
Yeah,
disposition. Is
most
that
of them
correct?
seem quite ill. Some of them, as they approach you, they start to beg. You realize that not all of them are sick themselves. Some of them are loved ones of other treasure hunters who've headed into the forest, and they're kind of beseeching you to find out what happened to their loved ones.
But this entire camp or this entire shanty town is all based around the myth of the mellified man in here. Is that right? This is like sort of the place where people go to set out into the bleeding kaleidoscope
Yeah, so
or bloody
I mean, I
kaleidoscope.
think that you are surprised by the scale of it. You thought that you had a bit of a special lead, and that not many other people would have come this way. But now you realise that that's not really the case. That there have been at least a few expeditions into the kaleidoscope. Possibly, someone might be getting there ahead of you. Who does the mob kind of, as they shuffle towards you, singles one of you out as the leader? Who is it that they think is the leader of the group?
Well, I will say that Fiona's kind of disgusted by all of them. Right? This is not really his scene, so he is going to kind of take a step behind Basso.
I would probably identify these people as, oh man, I didn't intend to play a complete jerk in this game, but I think that given my guy's background, I would see a lot of these people as potential marks. And so maybe I would be a bit more, I don't know, open to conversation, shall we say.
Okay.
I can just tell you Baso's take on it is they're probably not going to interfere with us, but we should avoid them on our way back if we're successful, because they'll be more of an obstacle then. There's no motivation for them to stop us going in, and potentially they're a source of information, but if their information was good, they wouldn't still be here, because whoever they're waiting for would have returned successfully. So they might be a good source of details on what not to do, but that's about it.
Yeah. So I mean, they're not making any move to stop you or anything like that, but they're slowing down your progress. They're kind of in your way, they're not blocking your way, but they are across the path. Some of them kind of tug at your clothes as you try and pass, and all of them are sort of muttering these tales of woe and begging for different sorts of aid and help.
I think that I will kind of address the crowd as a collective and just sort of say, all of you, parts, let us through. We're here to help you. Please do not impede our passage. And I'll reach into my coin purse and almost dismissively toss a few copper pieces off to the side, to no one in particular, but as if I'm feeding birds almost. It's this almost palpable disrespect towards them.
All right, so that will work. People will fan out and start running after the coins and things like that. You see them, small fights and scuffles breaking out as people fight for the little bit of copper that you've thrown away. Basso, what there's all these kind of pleas coming at you. Stories of illness, disfigurement, disability, things like that. What's the plea that really catches your attention? The one that you can't quite dismiss so easily?
I mean, it's got to be an ill child that reminds me of my my daughter, who's maybe had some kind of birth defect that is looking like they're unlikely to live a long, full life. Yeah.
Are you going to make, the person is begging you to bring back, just a thumb, just an eyeball, anything that would save the child's life. Are you going to make any sort of a promise to them, or what will you do? I mean, if you find the source, you're going to have like more Malafide man than you know what to do with.
Yeah, I mean, I think I maybe say something like yes. If I can, if we can help, we'll help.
They are overwhelmingly grateful. Just showering you with thanks and things like that. Theon, what rumor do you hear somebody in the crowd whispering about one of the other treasure hunters that's with you?
I think that we hear someone who is angry at Theoden because they enlisted Theoden's help for their illness, and Theoden sold them some kind of quackery that didn't help, but took all of their money. So now they're forced to be here.
Is that something that you would immediately believe because you already know it's true, or are you surprised to hear someone say that about him? Or
I honestly think that Fionn doesn't care. So I don't think it matters to him whether Theoden did it or not. But sure, that sounds like the kind of thing Theoden would do.
Yeah. All right. So all of you see, Theoden, you notice up ahead a veiled figure in mourning black pointing the way on towards where you think the Bleeding Kaleidoscope will be. But you kind of, you catch him for a second out of the corner of your eye. And when you look back, you just see a gnarled tree trunk that you had momentarily mistaken for a person on the path. In fact, what you now realize you see up ahead, the way that you need to go, is a group of white-robed figures. They are dancing and singing some sort of maybe religious or cultish song. They seem to be engaged in some sort of worship or some sort of spiritual practice, but one that's quite ecstatic. And they're kind of arraying themselves right on the brink of where you expect to kind of part the trees and head on into the Bleeding Kaleidoscope. What do you do?
Odd, superstitious customs these people adhere to. I'll kind of paw my way, to the edge of the crowd and kind of get over to the edge of where these people are. And I envision them kind of dancing in a circle, almost in kind of a witchy sort of way, holding hands and so forth. And I'll say, kind of shouldering my pack and getting kind of impatient in my tone of voice, "You there, if you'll interrupt what you're doing for a moment, could you tell us if this is the way to the so-called Bleeding Kaleidoscope, and what we might find there if we travel further?"
So they don't respond directly, and as you're this close to them, you just kind of absorb that this is a kind of, just babbling incoherence. They're not really articulating anything. Their eyes are wide. They may have consumed some sort of substance as part of their rituals, but you're clearly not going to get any sort of sensible response from them. But they refer in some sort of cryptic or symbolic way, you think, to Basso. What do they say, or how do they cryptically refer to Basso?
Are you asking me or Basso?
I'm asking Theoden, yeah, you say.
Would it be too much to say that they kind of begin to move in our direction, and they almost try to enlist Basso in the dance as if he is like an object of adoration or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Basso, how do you react to these robed figures trying to enlist you into their worshipful dance?
I mean, I think at first he's kind of happy to just kind of observe it, but if they start kind of like cutting him off from the other two, he probably, shoves one of them out of the way to,
Okay.
This is like, what?
Yeah, I mean they're quite harmless, so I think you can shove them out of the way pretty easily. They continue on with their dance. They're kind of, there's a lot of symbolic language in the song that they're singing, but it seems like they're suggesting or sort of prophesying a glorious fate for you. The symbols that they describe are all quite optimistic and positive, and from the kind of place that you've come to, as you shove them away, you can see these kind of glimmers in the distance over ridges and through gullies that suggest that the forest opens up into a riotous meadow just a little further, which surely is the Bleeding Kaleidoscope that you're looking for. What do you do?
Are we comfortable with the idea, Brian, that that either Theoden and I, or just I, have hired you as protection on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, however we want to describe it, hired, recruited, whether it was just, a share of whatever profits come out of it, or I don't know that there was any payment up front, but
okay. So Fionn will definitely as Basso is sort of like dancing, and the dance becomes a little more chaotic, and Basso gets kind of overwhelmed by it and sort of pushes his way out. Fionn will be there, and he'll just sort of look disdainfully at Basso and say, like, "You're not here to be carousing with the locals. Can we carry on?"
I'm ready to go.
Then please lead, Tracker.
So Theoden,
No, go ahead.
No, please.
I was just going to say, I'm already at the edge of the forest. I've basically turned around and I'm like... my character is basically Vizzini from The Princess Bride. I'm waiting. Like, let's move it along.
All right. So as you look back at these at your companions, you'll see that one of the kind of residents of this little shanty town has sort of shambled up behind them, and now reaches out with his one remaining hand to grab Fionn by the shirt and kind of pull hard on the shirt and say, "Yeah, your friend was generous with them coppers. You got some coppers for me?" As you turn back towards him, you can see that there are kind of maggots visibly writhing in the festering stump of his lost arm. Let me hold your coppers till you get back, right?
So Fionn looks at him and tries to recoil but can't, because he's sort of caught. And in almost a desperate voice, he yells for Basso. Basso, take care of this.
So I might get Fionn to make a ruin roll at this point. So the ruin roll, just reading from the game text, when you witness or undergo something disturbing, make a ruin roll by rolling one dark die. If your dark die rolled higher than your current ruin, increase your ruin by 1. So you'll see on the roll with me there's a spot for light and dark dice, and this will be just one dark die.
Can I ask a mechanical question about how that works?
Please.
Oh. Well, first of all, is that what the 6 is on the roll with me page?
Yeah, that's me about to have a bad day, I think.
That's you. Okay.
Very much.
Okay. My question is, what is it in this game that triggers ruin rolls? In Cthulhu Dark, typically it's scary stuff that hints at the dark truth of the mystery. In this game, what kinds of things tend to activate those kinds of rolls?
Yeah, so anything that you see or that happens to you that's disturbing can trigger a ruin roll. There's also a mechanic that's kind of bundled up in the risk roll, which is the other main kind of dice roll that we'll do when you're doing something difficult or dangerous. That can turn into a ruin roll as well. But the basic ruin roll is just like you've seen or done something disturbing.
Got it. Okay.
Theon, your ruin increases by 1.
I just did it.
Okay.
That means that I'm eligible for reduction rolls now? Is that right?
You are. I've never seen anyone reach eligible for reduction rolls in the first ring of the incursion.
I feel like I literally haven't even gone into the forest yet.
So I'll come back to you in a sec to talk about how the reduction roll works. Basso, what do you do as Theon calls you over to help with this man?
Yeah, I think if I'm kind of approaching from behind, I can get leverage on his arm that he's holding, that he's grabbed a hold of him with, and to, kind of crank his arm at an awkward angle to force him to let go. And
Yeah, so that definitely works. You easily break his grip away from Theon and start to turn him around. But as that happens, a bunch of these people are now kind of rushing towards you. Some of them hold not weapons exactly, but objects that might be wielded like weapons, and they are yelling with significant anger that you've put your hands on one of their number. What do you do?
I think we want to just move into the forest as quickly as possible, because I don't think they're going to follow us.
All right, so I'm going to get you to make a risk roll to get into the forest before they kind of close the distance on you. So I'll just talk through how the risk roll works. When you attempt a risky task, say what you hope will happen and ask the GM and the other players what could possibly go wrong. So the goal clearly is to get into the forest and away from these people before they can catch you. Is that right? David and Daniel, what are some things that could possibly go wrong here?
So we each offer up a thing that could possibly go wrong, and Brian can then choose from those things. Is that how that works?
So the players all have the option to offer one or more things that could go wrong. So you don't have to offer one if you don't have one. You can offer more than one. If the roll fails, then I'll decide the actual outcome, either choosing something that one of you suggested or not.
Okay. I definitely think that a possible negative outcome here is that somebody gets injured, right?
Mm-hmm. Like one of you or one of the people?
One of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems like the obvious bad outcome.
Oh no! Wait, I have a better one.
Right.
I think one possible negative outcome is that Basso kills the young girl who reminded him of his daughter accidentally.
That is something that could go wrong.
If I'm firing a warning shot with my bow and arrow and it goes astray, I guess almost anyone could get could hurt by that. Sure.
And this is obviously something you have the option to accept or not, right?
No. So sorry. Just for clarity, I will decide if the roll doesn't succeed. The GM decides what the outcome is.
Gotcha.
You're thinking more of a devil's bargain, and we'll come to that in a sec.
I was thinking exactly of that. Okay.
David, anything else that you want to suggest that could go wrong here?
I was going to say the injury suggestion from Daniel, but maybe up the ante a little bit. If this is a very diseased community, perhaps the wound is infectious in some way, and now he's got like a timer before it spreads.
Amazing. Okay, so some great options for what could go wrong. So now you just make your dice pool. So take one light-colored die if the task is something that you're skilled at. Do you have a relevant skill? I suspect that you do. Athletics.
I mean, maybe tactics is of all the things I'm skilled at might make the most sense as far as like.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm happy for you to take a light die for that. So you can take another light die for accepting a devil's bargain from another player or the GM. I think people are familiar with this mechanic, but the idea is that a devil's bargain is something bad that will happen regardless of whether you succeed or fail. So this is where each of us has the option to propose a devil's bargain. I'll decide which of those bargains is actually offered to Basso, and then Basso can decide whether to take it or not. David, do you want to propose a devil's bargain?
And mechanically, what this does is it adds an additional die to his pool. Is that how it works?
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's immediately springing to mind beyond the aforementioned disease injury. Yeah, nothing comes to mind at this point, but I might get back on that.
Okay. Daniel?
Yeah, I think maybe a devil's bargain would be that, like we make it into the forest and manage to get away from the crowd, but we are not going in the right direction.
I think that I'm tempted to offer the devil's bargain that you do have to kill someone to get away, and the person that you kill is the father of the small child that reminded you of your own child, and you are left to decide whether to abandon this child in the diseased shanty town or bring it with you on your hunt. Would you take that devil's bargain for another light die?
Yes, sure.
Right.
I mean, he joined an angry mob, so I mean, what did he
exactly? So that's 2 light die. You can have 1 dark die if you're willing to risk your mind or body to succeed.
Okay.
All right. So it sounds like 2 light and 1 dark die. So just give him a roll, and we're looking for the highest result.
Okay.
All right. A 6 on the light die. So 6 is a success. So do you want to describe how you get away and how you kill the father and what you decide to do about that?
Yeah, I think yeah, I mean, apparently there were too many of them. They were too enthusiastic about it, and yeah, I think there's just that moment of realization that, like, yeah, like the mob just grew in size too quickly before we could, get away, and yeah, I was gonna have to use my bow and arrow to discourage them convincingly, and I don't think I was aiming specifically for him, but I was aiming into the crowd, and so the idea is I have the opportunity of taking the child with me.
Well, I guess it's for you to decide now what you do. You can see that you've cut down the father. You can see the child sort of crawling aimlessly. I think probably too young to really realize what's happened. You can abandon the child here, or you can try something else.
I mean, I hope that someone cares for it, but that's...
All right. You abandon the child. And with that, let's take our first break. I need to make a cup of tea, so can we make it, let's come back at 10 minutes past the hour, if that's all right for everyone. Great. All right. Everyone good to keep going? Cool. So let's see. We should start with the reduction roll, I think. So once your ruin reaches 5, you can make something called a reduction roll. Jesse Ross posted a new version of the reduction roll in the Trophy Discord recently, so I'm going to try out that sort of newer version of the rule for today. Just opening it up. So this is what the new version of the rule says. The forest wants revenge. Humans have stolen its secrets and its gifts and given nothing in return. When your ruin reaches 5, you may now reduce it by acting in the interests of the forest, destroying treasure, preventing the use of rituals, or sabotaging your fellow treasure hunters' exit from the forest. You should do these acts in a way that does not draw attention to yourself. The more it looks like an accident or simple bad luck, the better. Each time you do this, roll 1 light die. If you rolled less than your current ruin, your betrayal goes unnoticed and you decrease your ruin by 1. If you roll higher than or equal to your ruin, you may still choose to reduce your ruin by 1, but someone will notice your attempted betrayal. And you can continue to make reduction rolls once you've reduced your ruin below 5. But you can't reduce your ruin below your starting ruin, which for you was 4, I think. Yeah. All right. So, did you want to say something?
Oh, yeah. Is the character out of play when you hit ruin 6 or if you go above ruin 6?
When you hit 6.
When you hit 6, okay.
Okay, so we're just going to kind of hard frame ahead a fair bit. You have made your way into the Bleeding Kaleidoscope. It's probably a day or so since you breached the perimeter, since we left the game. And what you found is just these kind of vast and rolling fields, ink black trees, and everywhere you look, towering paper white wooden beehives across a flower meadow that's just saturated with bleeding color. The light here is very tricky. It kind of deceives your eyes. Things seem to appear and disappear, or they twist at strange angles, or duplicate, like they sort of blur and exist in more than one place at a time. Just so, like, even moving through this space has been quite exhausting for you. There are swarms of bees, almost hunting, it seems, through the meadow. And at times you've kind of had to flee from these swarms as they aggressively move towards you. And Fion, one thing I should mention is that ever since that man grabbed your shirt back at the camp, you've heard this kind of beautiful singing at all, like constantly, even kind of hard to get to sleep because of this constant melody in your ears. Can't quite place the words, but you sense that there are words there if you could just just get that little bit more clarity into what you're hearing. Basso, you're a tracker. This sort of terrain is probably not as unusual to you as it is to the others. What signs have you been seeing of the terrible thing that hunts here?
I think there are, whatever it is, it doesn't leave a it itself doesn't leave that easy to spot of a trail. But when when its path intersects with other trails, those trails come to an end.
Have you pointed that out to the others?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's there's something that's taking down large prey, and easily, it seems.
Are you finding the remains of the creatures that it's eaten, or are the remains gone somehow?
I mean, I'm sure we're also running across, carcasses and whatnot, but it's not totally clear that.
Okay.
Like I said, its trail is not particularly clear, so that, yeah. But
sure.
So is Basso trying to lead us away from, like, is he trying to keep us safe from this thing?
I mean, I don't even know what it is, so I mean, sure, but like.
So I think that as we're traveling through this space,
it's more just a warning of just like, stay alert so that we don't, like, whatever this is doesn't just like get a drop on us.
Right. So I think as we're traveling through this space, I think Fionn becomes more and more convinced that whatever this is that is taking these animals or other visitors to this forest as prey has something to do with the source of this wondrous voice that he's hearing. And I think that what he does is, as sort of usual, he lets Basso lead because that's, Basso should encounter danger before Fionn, obviously, right? But as they're traveling through the space, I think that Fionn is like taking his rations of dried meat and is like ripping pieces off of it and leaving a trail to try to attract the creature.
Amazing. Well, why don't you go ahead and make a reduction roll for that?
Okay.
So just one light die.
If you insist. Don't roll a 6. Don't roll a 6.
It doesn't go up if it's a 6, so that's
okay,
equal.
right.
So I think on an equal, nothing's going to... Well, you're going to have an option, I guess.
Right,
So
I have an option, right? So I either get caught...
Yeah, if you roll higher than or equal to your ruin, you may still choose to reduce your ruin by 1, but someone will notice your attempted betrayal.
Yeah, I don't think I'll do. I think I'll just not. Yeah, I will not get caught.
Okay, you don't get caught, but you do know that you have deliberately left a trail of meat towards the way that you're walking. Teardown, how are you finding this news that there's some sort of large predator, unseen and unknown, in these fields?
I think that I would put on a confident exterior, and at the same time, Basso probably notices me asking him questions designed to reassure myself a lot more often. A lot of, now you know what you're doing here, right? And you know where we're going, right? And you know how long it's going to take before we get there, right? You're sure? Okay, now tell me one more time how it's going to work, and just kind of a lot more of the questioning to try to make sure that we are in fact safe. I promise I'm not upset or scared. I just want to make sure, that kind of thing.
And how does Basso take to this sort of questioning?
I mean, it's kind of like the half-truth answers. I mean, he's kind of talking. I don't think he really considers them to be like his boss, but at the same time, like, I mean, he's definitely putting a better spin on it than just being totally honest. Because, like, I mean, we don't really know where we're going exactly. So no, I definitely can't tell you like exactly when we're going to get there, and I don't know what it is that's. But I'm like, I this type of terrain is isn't unfamiliar to me, and we just none of us should go wandering off by themselves. But three grown men together is not an attractive prey to most predators. We just want to be aware of it. If we see it before it gets too close, I can put an arrow into it without too much difficulty, and that'll send it running away most likely. Positive spin, positive, those kind of answers.
Does Theodan find that reassuring?
I'm choosing to believe in it.
All right.
Because the alternative is far too scary.
Yeah, the alternative. So as you move along, you also notice that the beehives are getting taller. At first just a couple of stories high, now 3, sometimes 4 stories. These narrow kind of white hives. Theodan, as you try and put out of your head the news that there might be some sort of predator here that could kill a man, you see a man's body. Well, probably a man. It's hard to say, really. One of the beehives has been kind of blasted open somehow. It looks like it was burnt out by something. And inside you can see the blackened and roasted remains of a person clutching something in its hand. What do you do?
At first glance, are there any particularly aggressive bees nearby that I might need to be wary of?
No, not at the moment.
All right. I will go on ahead and say to the rest of the folks, hey, well, what's this guy got? Take a look at this. And I run ahead of everyone and grasp for the item that this man was clutching.
Okay. So you can sort of tease it out of his hand pretty easily. You can see that it was a map once. Whatever burnt out this hive and the body has also burnt most of the map. So, there's some sort of cinders falling as you pull it away. But there is also enough of the map left. I guess there's kind of a couple of things you can see on the map. One is that you see that you have avoided a terrible danger on your way here. And I would love for you to tell me what terrible danger you now know that you avoided.
I don't know that. Here's the idea that I have. I don't think that it would be described in great bestiary detail. I think that there might just be a sketch kind of off into the deeper parts of the woods that we narrowly passed. And it's a sketch of some sort of horned creature, kind of like a great rack of almost moose-like antlers, and it has sort of a cultish goat-like quality to it. You can't make out exactly what it is, how big it is, but it certainly looks terribly threatening. And you can tell just looking at it that it's bad news.
All right. Basso and Fionn, are you heading over to join Theodan?
I think Fionn is kind of standing back and waiting to see what happens initially.
All right. So Theodan and maybe Basso as you kind of approach. The other thing that this map shows is what appears to be a route forward. It has directions, and you can kind of put it together from some of the landmarks that you can see around you, even though parts of it are burnt away. There's a spot marked as the catacombs, and it appears that that's where this person was trying to get to, wherever that might be. I guess the other thing that you both notice, down on the ground, there are, like at the feet of this burnt out body, there are field mice sort of tumbling and staggering around the sticky shards of a broken glass jar. and the jar was wrapped in wax paper, and that's how you've heard the mellified man is delivered when it's purchased in the city. And it looks like this was once a kind of, there was some mellified man in this jar before, but the mice have eaten it now. There are kind of smears of honey and a few kind of chewed, like a few fingernails that the mice had chewed and rejected, still in the fragments of the jar. What do you want to do, if anything, with the broken jar?
I wanted to see if there was anything noteworthy about either the mice's behavior or some quality of the mice. I mean, if they have in fact been ingesting mellified man. And also I wanted to see if there is any more information I can gather surrounding how exactly this guy burst into flames and the honeycomb was exploded, or the hive, or what have you. Like, I just kind of want to know what the heck happened here also, if there is a way that I can get some intuition on that.
As far as the mice go, like the mice, you would say are basically acting drunk. Like, that's the thing that stands out in their behavior. They're not scurrying away from you like you might expect mice to, and they're kind of staggering and stumbling in a kind of drunken or intoxicated way. Do you have any relevant skills that might help you, work out what happened to this guy? What happened here?
Chemistry is the closest thing that I've got. I think herbs and chemistry is all I have.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like pretty familiar with kind of natural sciences, but not so much with the occult. Maybe you might imagine that sorry, Basso.
Our leech has forensics. That's probably more.
Yeah, the leech is standing well back at this point, I think. But I think you might conclude that he probably sought shelter inside this sort of structure. Why he would seek shelter inside a hive, not at all clear to you. And then the hive might have been struck by lightning. That's the kind of best theory that you can put together from the evidence before you.
Okay, noted.
Would it be fine at this time for Fionn to kind of call over and say, what do you have there?
Oh, it's a what used to be a map. I'll kind of wave it a little bit and trot back, leaving the glass jar for Beso, or if he'd like to take a look at it.
Okay. Fionn will meet you like halfway now that he sees that none of you have been in any danger.
Yeah. Not sure what in the world happened to him back there, but anyway. Catacombs mean anything to either of you?
Not to me. Apparently, this man was interested enough in it to burn himself up in a beehive.
He seems to have had perhaps some success, indicating towards the broken jar.
Yeah. So Fionn will kind of go over there and examine the situation a bit, and I think that he's going to reach down and grab a conveniently empty sack of what used to be some rations, and he is going to just frantically grab up some mice starting on the ground, and he's going to throw them into his sack. And when he has a sack full of mice, he's going to find something hard, and he's going to kill them. And then he is going to lay them out, and he's going to retrieve his surgeon's tools, and he's going to begin digging for some mellified man.
Are either Basso or Theodan going to intervene at any point in this process?
I'm not intervening, but I'm kind of, I'm doing the closest thing to pointing at my watch and motioning up at the sun and going, "What are you doing?"
The catacombs would be a better place to search. Mice and trends.
So he will sort of disdainfully answer over his shoulder while he is obviously hyper focused on his task. and he will just sort of murmur something about the mice devouring the evidence.
If you're so intent on testing it, why don't you just eat one of them yourself and see what happens?
He'll like raise his head and sort of like cock it, and he'll be like, "Yes," and then he'll continue on with his work.
As you take that sort of thoughtful moment, you for the first time can make out the words in the song that you've been hearing in your head, and you almost make them out. You're sure that it's just said something about the catacombs.
Okay.
But before you can kind of listen any more closely, the song is almost drowned out by the sound of bees, and all of you. Not just Fionn, all of you can hear the bees, the swarm that is billowing down towards you from above. What do you do?
I knew it was too good to be true.
Well, shall we?
I'm running.
Yeah.
Fionn will kind of look up after everyone else has started to run and sort of break out of his stupor a little bit, and he's going to try to scoop the mouse corpses into his bag and then follow.
All right. What supplies sort of fall from your bag because you're so intent on getting the mice in there? Or maybe a personal effect of some kind.
Yeah, I would say that probably he, in his rush to get his surgeon's tools back, he winds up scattering them on the ground and basically can only walk away with I don't know, a couple hemostats and a scalpel or something like that. All of the rest of his prized surgeon's tools are left behind.
Yeah, so as you kind of look back over your shoulder as you run, and you're both sort of disturbed and relieved that the bees don't seem to be following you so much, as they have almost gathered around your bone saw and have closed around that with great fascination.
Interesting. That certainly won't come back to haunt us.
But you do, you all run for some time. You kind of you get far enough away that you're not worried about that swarm anymore. You find that someone has built a gallows into one of the hives, and there is a body hanging from it. But you can also see from this point some a kind of stairway leading down into the ground, stone steps carved into the earth, and what appears from the map that you've seen to be an entrance to the catacombs. What do you do?
I think Fionn is going to uncharacteristically just bull his way into the catacombs.
Teodan and Basso also heading into the catacombs?
I'm looking to Basso and kind of saying, well, should we go after him? I'm considerably more measured and cautious in my approach than this.
I think so. Whoever left him there probably didn't leave anything useful like a map on him. So we may as well continue.
Fionn, have you mentioned the song that you can hear to the others?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay. Well, Basso and Teodan, you start to hear a song. The very faint at first, but the deeper you head in, the clearer it will start to be. Let's see, and it's quite beautiful. The main thing that you see as you head down into the catacombs, Fionn first, is passageways lined with large cisterns. kind of very dark in here. In fact, you probably need to stop and arrange some sort of light source. I assume that some of you have a torch or something like that. The cisterns, what do you do?
Yeah, I'd definitely like to examine a cistern.
Just like the nearest one, or?
Yeah, sure. Just to see, if they have water in them, what is going on with that.
So they're sealed. It's not obvious to you how you could open one.
Okay.
They have dates. There's a date engraved on the one that you examine. You also notice that there are statuettes of sort of weird angels, I guess is how you describe them, that hang in places from the stone arches.
What are the dates on the cisterns like sort of relative to now?
What a great question. The nearest, so you're examining one that's like fairly close to the entrance, I guess. Mm-hmm. It's not very old. Okay. It looks like it's about 2 months ago.
Just like a quick look, do they all appear to be from the same time, or is there some kind of pattern as to how they age differently or anything like that we can discern?
If you have a look at a couple of them, you'll probably find that they're clustered fairly closely together in time. Mm-hmm. At least at this, this sort of entry point of the catacombs.
Okay, and they're all sealed. Like there's no way none of them are broken or opened or anything like that.
Like definitely none that you can see easily from that kind of entry point. Maybe further in there could be open ones. What do you want to do?
I want to make space for anybody else who wants to do a little investigation in here.
Does anyone? Is there any investigation that you're wanting to do, or you want to head further in, or what are people thinking?
I mean, somewhat recent dates implies someone, is coming here. My best guess is they don't want us here, and that's why they're stringing people up at the entrance. So this just encourages me to move on quickly.
Do you see any other evidence of recent activity here? I ask, not knowing how somebody might track somebody across, a stone floor or whatever, but it's not my job. So,
if you want to look for signs of recent activity, I think I might make that a risk roll.
Well, I don't.
Sure. Because I think I'm definitely looking for any pattern to it that'll help us avoid whoever it is. So I'm probably definitely looking for that. Yeah.
Okay. So that's what you hope will happen. Mm-hmm. Other players in the GM, what could possibly go wrong with this attempt to identify any patterns of movement? Daniel?
Well, I think maybe we run into whomever strung a person up out front. Mm-hmm. Seems reasonable.
Mm-hmm. David?
I mean, if we're in a dungeon crawl or the beginnings of one, maybe now is a good time for the floor to be unstable and to give way beneath people.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, also on the dungeon crawl theme, maybe, you misidentify the tracks and lead yourselves, more immediately into danger than you would have otherwise. All right. So take one light-colored die if the task is something that you're skilled at. Do you have a relevant skill?
I guess pathfinding?
Oh, yeah. That's I'm not quite sure what pathfinding is, but it definitely seems relevant. Does anyone want to propose a devil's bargain for another light die? So something bad that will happen regardless of whether this succeeds or not.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, nothing.
Well, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, yeah, nothing's immediately springing to mind for me either.
I feel like I've got to offer something. I'm just thinking a little. Yeah.
There's always the possibility that something will happen and we'll have to find another exit. I mean, a cave in or something along those lines.
I think maybe the devil's bargain is that regardless of whether you succeed or fail, you find someone who's already encountered whatever people that you're looking for. That's sort of deliberately vague. Would you take that devil's bargain?
That sounds interesting enough that, yeah.
Right. And one dark die if you're willing to risk your mind or body to succeed.
Sure.
All right. So 2 light, 1 dark.
All right.
All right. That's a 6 on both the light and the dark die. So let me just... Sorry, I have to double check what it means if they are equal. All right, so that is going to count as a ruin roll for you. So your ruin will increase by 1, but you'll also succeed. So yeah, you're definitely able to identify some patterns in the traces of footsteps in the dirt and dust along the floors of the catacomb when you look closely with the torch. You think it's enough for you to figure out which way you need to go towards the sort of heart of the catacombs with the point that you're looking for, and also the route that will, sort of circumvent the most of the, you're not sure whether to call them guards or attendants or whoever it might be around here. As you do bend towards the ground, you have this sensation like there's a weird, hot, sharp feeling in your nose. When you stand up, you feel an intense burning in both nostrils. And then do you want to indicate to the others the way that you think you should go?
Sure.
All right. So as you sort of start to lead them the way that you think is best, you feel something leaking from your nose. It doesn't feel quite like, like snot dripping down your face. And the pain in your nose is fairly intense.
Mm.
Do you want to do or say anything about it? Or just keep it to yourself?
I mean, if I take a piece of cloth and try to wipe it, what do I see?
So there's definitely blood in there. So something other than blood. I mean, you're not a doctor. You're not necessarily able to immediately identify what it is that's leaking from your nose.
If only we had a doctor.
If only there was one. What do you do?
I'll turn to my companions. I think maybe I breathed something in to my nose. I don't.
So Theon and Theodan, as Basso says this, you immediately see in the torchlight that his nose has become misshapen, and between the visual, like between seeing that and the kind of grotesque bloody lumps of something that he's holding out towards you in a cloth, it's clear to you that the cartilage in his nose is melting and running out through his nostrils.
That
What do
sounds
you do?
not great. So I think that Fionn will kind of go into doctor mode kind of immediately and just sort of push Basso up against a wall and take his light, presuming Basso's not trying to stop him or anything. Take his light and kind of like lift it up and with horrible bedside manner kind of like grab his nose and sort of like lift so that he can see it and kind of move it around to see if he can feel what's going on. And
excruciatingly painful. I feel compelled to point out that this might be a great opportunity for Fionn to make a reduction roll.
Yeah, I feel like the requirements making a reduction roll are sort of vague. I understand things like destroying treasure that we are trying to escape with, and I understand things like inviting horrors and stuff like that. But I'm not sure what else necessarily would qualify. So I would definitely love suggestions, and I'd be open to doing any of them.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think generally anything that kind of debilitates or harms your fellow treasure hunters might count.
Okay. I would like to actually legitimately try to figure out what's going on, though, just in case it is a threat to me. Right.
Okay.
So,
all right, I'll just pause you there for a sec. I just want to check in with Theodan. What are you doing while Fionn starts sort of ministering to Basso?
I think that I would sort of look about me in a state of not exactly panic, but fear, to see if there's anything that might be coming toward us. This is a bad omen, but then I'll otherwise kind of run with them, to the source of the torchlight and just kind of watch and examine his.
I don't know what it is about Theodan that sort of keeps finding these bodies, but as you look around in fear, you realize there is an emaciated figure sort of slumped against the bars of an alcove in the wall of the catacombs just nearby. Kind of skin is glistening in the torchlight. Hard to tell how long it might have been there. But then as you look at it, it kind of starts and its eyes open and you realize that it's not actually dead, as drawn and impossible as that seems. And it sort of slumps back again, away from the bars, back towards the concrete wall just behind it. And you can see that it's gnawing on tattered pieces of this honeyed and golden flesh that it's gotten from somewhere. There is also a notebook strung by some twine from a hook hanging just outside the bars that enclose it.
Is there a way that I can get access to this fellow through the bars, or
you could reach through the bars towards him? Yeah.
Okay.
I think first I'm just going to get you to make a ruin roll for the horror of seeing him. So just one dark die.
A single dark die, and then I click roll. That's the first roll I've made this game. That's a 3.
Right.
Okay. So I think that is it like in Cthulhu Dark, or if it's above or at your current roll, or how does
just
it work?
if it's above. So that will increase your ruin by 1.
Yep. Okay.
All right. And I'll come back to you in just a sec to see how you go with reaching in or whatever else you might decide. But Fionn, you were going to try and figure out what's happening to Basso. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's call that a risk roll, I suppose. What you're trying to achieve is to identify the cause of what's happening to Basso's nose. Is that fair to say?
Yes, absolutely.
Other players, what could possibly go wrong? two that leap out to me is that it could turn out that this is contagious, or that someone or something finds you kind of indisposed while you're in the middle of this kind of investigation. Does anyone else want to suggest something that could go wrong? Maybe we're okay with those two.
Yeah.
All right. So take one die if it's something that you're skilled in. I assume that you have a relevant skill for something like this.
Yeah, forensic sounds like it'd be applicable.
Yeah, of course. Does anyone want to propose a devil's bargain? Something that could go badly regardless of the outcome?
I mean, Basil's in a lot of pain, so you know, you go poking around in his nose, he might lash out. You know, despite himself. Even if he
might
thinks
injure
you're
you
helping.
somehow. Like, could we maybe make that a little more specific? Like, some sort of injury that Fion might receive.
Specifically, I don't know.
What about like along similar lines that regardless of the outcome, Basso kind of lashes out in such a way that the remaining surgical tools are scattered and lost. What do you think of that? Will you take that devil's bargain?
I think I'm not invested enough in Basso's nose to take that devil's bargain.
Right. So one light die. You can add a dark die if you want to risk your mind or body to succeed.
No, I'm okay not doing that.
All right, just one light die then.
All right, here we go. 2.
So on a 2, you fail and things get worse. You do have the option now, if you'd like, to add a dark die and re-roll. Do you want to do that?
So if I add a dark die and re-roll, then I would roll my initial die and a dark die.
That's right.
With the same chance of success and all of that, right?
That's right.
And that would be, yeah, sure, why not?
All right.
I like pushing my luck. Here we go. Ready?
No. Yep. Oh.
Awesome.
So I think that So I think that because your highest die is, you don't have a highest dark die, you have the option to again add a dark die and re-roll. So that would be 1 light and 2 dark die. Dark dice.
And you can continue to do this until the dark die is the highest die, right?
Dark die is the highest, yeah.
Okay. And something horrible will happen to me if I roll a 6 on either dark die.
That's right.
Okay. Sure, why not? No, actually, no. I'm not that invested in Basso's nose. It's fine. I'll leave it at 2.
You fail and things get worse. So I'll come back to what the outcome of that is. But I just want to get back to Theodan and the figure in the cage. So you were asking about reaching in towards it. You absolutely can reach between the bars. What is it that you're trying to do?
Well, I would like to collect 2 things. Number 1 is the notebook. Number 2 is the bit of honeyed flesh this person has been chewing on, because if this is in fact the Malified Man, I would like to examine it in more detail. Okay. And I would also like to, just by means of visual observation, see if I can get a better sense as what the heck happened to this guy. You said his skin was glistening.
Yeah, that's right. So, all right, let's start with a risk roll to grab those things. I just think, in the dark, it's pretty hard to figure out what's happened to his skin exactly. But yeah, there's definitely something. It looks like something maybe strange in his sweat or something like that that's producing this effect. But also he appears, he's obviously been in this cage for a long time, it looks like. Partly because it appears that the bars are simply set into the wall and not that there's any sort of gate or door or latch or anything like that. But let's have a risk roll to see if you can grab those two things. So, other players, what could possibly go wrong as Teodan reaches into the cage to try and get these things?
Well, I mean, you're grabbing these things, but you could get grabbed right back.
Yeah, the thing in the cage the person in the cage could grab or even bite you. I mean, one thing that could go wrong is that you just aren't able to grab those things, I guess. Daniel, is there anything that you wanted to add?
I was going to say the same thing Brian did, so I'm totally on board with that idea.
Yeah. So take one light die if it's something that you're skilled at. I don't know that you have a relevant skill. Do you, or what do you think?
Not that I can see. I mean, chemistry perhaps for observing, but not for taking anything.
Yeah. All right. So does anyone want to propose a devil's bargain?
This this is strictly for getting those items, right? That's right. the goal here?
Yes. That's what I understood.
I think.
Oh, sorry, go on.
I was going to say maybe a devil's bargain is that regardless of whether or not you retrieve the items, you are corrupted by whatever has inflicted this poor soul.
And that would be something that happens no matter what.
Yeah, regardless of whether you succeed or fail. Would you take that devil's bargain?
I mean, it sounds like a death sentence. If I didn't, would I have a dice pool of essentially 0, though?
No, you would have unless you take a dark dice. So if you don't have a skill dice or a devil's bargain die, your only option is to risk your mind or body and take a dark die.
I see.
And it wouldn't really be a death sentence. I mean, this guy's not dead, obviously. So
yeah, it looks like he's lived for quite a time.
He'll be for just a good night's rest and lots of water.
Yeah, be fine.
All right. Well, what I'll do is, risk averse as I am, I'll probably just take a dark dice, and that allows me to get one light die, so it's one dark, one light.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're tied, does light win ties, or do I still take a ruin?
You'll only take a ruin if your dark die is equal. So if they're tied, it does count as a ruin roll, but you'll only gain ruin if you roll a 4 or higher.
Okay, and is that on a separate ruin roll, or is that on the...
No, it's just on this roll itself. It counts as a ruin roll.
Well, then I'll more than likely be fine. I'll go ahead and just do one light, one dark, and see what happens.
Right. Cool.
Well, of course. Okay.
So again, you have the option to add a dark die and re-roll the whole thing. If you don't, then on a 3, you fail and things get worse.
And a 3 is what I rolled.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Yeah, let's go ahead and just add a dark die and re-roll.
Great.
So we'll do 1 light, 2 dark.
Yep. All right. So that is a 5. So on a 5, you succeed, but there's some kind of complication, which I describe. You have the option if you want to add a dark die and re-roll if you want to try for a straight success. But
I'll stick with what I have. Do I take do I increase my ruin given that a dark 5 is tied for highest?
Yeah, so that's going to put your ruin up to 4.
All right.
All right. So you succeed, but there's a complication. All right. So that means you definitely have, you get your hands on both these things. You grab the notebook and you tear it from the string that it's hanging on. And at the same time, you manage to grab a little strip of this mellified flesh that the person is chewing at. It squeals horribly as you grab at the flesh, like it's desperate to stop you from getting that out of its grip, but you are able to sort of wrest it away, and it sinks its teeth into your hand as you drag its treat away from it. There's an awful pain as its teeth sink into your hand, but you get both of your hands away. I imagine you probably stagger back a little bit. You're kind of clutching the wound or something like that. In the distance, back sort of the way you came, I think, like, as you look back down the passageway that you came from, you can see Basso and Fion just a little bit behind you. But further behind them, there's something in here with you all. It is... The first thing you see is just the light of a lantern that swings as it sort of rounds the corner, and a jagged sort of humming of the same melody that you heard before. But the silhouette that extends out around the corner in this lantern light is plainly not the silhouette of a human. Whatever it is that's coming, it's not a person, it's not a man. And I reckon we'll take our second break right here. So, Tedan, tell us what it is about the silhouette that makes it immediately obvious to you that that's not a human.
In keeping with the bee imagery, I'll say 6 limbs. Legs, arms, and then whatever the heck is coming out of the middle.
Mm-hmm.
That remains to be seen.
Right. So all of you can see that this six-limbed thing is coming towards you, about to round the corner towards where you are. The noise it's making is quite awful. It's like some variation on the song that you've all heard earlier, but where that felt like a kind of charming, lullaby almost, this is horrible, grating, grinding noise. What do you want to do?
This strikes me as Basso's domain, so I'm going to not cower behind him, but get behind him.
I think I'm going to jump in fright, and I'm going to give Basso's nose a really good twist.
In the spirit of a reduction roll, perhaps?
In the spirit of a reduction roll, yeah. Oh, boy. Here we go. That's just one light die, right?
That's right.
Okay. Don't roll high. God, terrible. It's a 6. I just can't do it, can I?
So, what? So your choices are?
Yeah, I do not want to be caught for that. I want it to look like an accident for sure. So I will not. Okay. I will not take the reduction. Ah, curses! Look, it's here.
All right. And so I think that nonetheless, the excruciating pain of having your companion smash your melted nose is going to mean a ruin roll for you. So just one dark die. Right. So that's going to increase your ruin by 1. Yeah. And yeah, this is just a horrifying pain that sort of rings out through your whole body. I just want to mention mechanically, one thing that you should probably be aware of, that I perhaps should have mentioned earlier. The combat rules for Trophy Dark are that if you try and fight any of the monstrosities of the forest, you die. So just something to bear in mind as you decide what to do about this thing that's coming towards you.
But like shooting arrows at it while we retreat isn't exactly a fight. It's just
so you can make a risk roll to escape, to hold it off, to slow it down, things like that. Is that what you're wanting to do?
Yeah, I think I'll try to cover our escape with some arrows fired towards it.
Okay, great. So that will be a risk roll. Other players, what could possibly go wrong?
I think an obvious one would be that he underestimates the speed of the creature and is somehow unable to get away.
This might be more similar to success at a cost, which is already an option, but there's always the possibility that it works, but then he leads us into something worse.
Yeah, I think I was going to suggest something similar, that you trying to escape this, run into something else. I think that's a good range of ways this could go wrong. So take a light die if this is something that you're skilled in.
Yeah.
Oh, you're skilled with the bow, sure. All right. Does anyone want to propose a devil's bargain? Something that happens regardless of success or failure.
I mean, normally when you are, hunting with your bow and arrow, you're retrieving your arrows, and this is definitely a situation where I'm not going to be able to do that. So
maybe the devil's bargain is that you run out of arrows?
Run out of arrows, yeah.
Or maybe I'm tempted by the devil's bargain, you only have one arrow left, which I think makes it a little more dramatic. Would you take that devil's bargain?
Sure.
All right. And one dark die if you'll risk your mind or body to succeed.
No, let's just go with the 2.
All right. So just 2 light die. Light dice. All right. Success. You only have one arrow left, but you slow down whatever this thing is enough. You get far enough ahead that you feel at least a temporary safety in the ground that you've covered. Do you want to talk at all about what you've discovered or not discovered so far down here? Like, do you want to look at the notebook that you found, Teodan?
As soon as we've got some distance between us and that thing, then yeah, let's have a look at it.
So the notebook is written in it is written in the language that you speak, like let's call it common or whatever, but it's written in what you can recognize as a kind of archaic dialect. It's written like you imagine that your grandparents or great-grandparents would have written, strange and sort of distant, but comprehensible. And it appears like the notations are quite brief, but it looks like records of the experiment that's been conducted on that person left in the cage. It records dates, stretching back as you look at it, around 250 years worth of dates in this thick notebook. And it records on each day a list of body parts. And it seems to you that this is a record of what the person was fed each day. At the end of each month, there are some brief notations that you can't quite work out that seem to be some sort of assessment as to the condition of the patient, the experimental subject, at that point. And like I say, this has been carried on for several hundred years at least. It's not really clear to you whether the notebook goes back to the beginning of the experiment or not.
Are we all looking at this together?
I'm fine with sharing this with the two of you.
Okay, so just to clarify, this is 250 years worth of records for this one individual.
That's what it appears to be. Yeah.
Okay. My professional medical opinion is that's not possible.
This seems suspect to me. I don't know.
Interesting.
Well, if they are feeding him a mallified man,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the rumor goes that is essentially a fountain of youth. Yeah, I guess to mix metaphors. So maybe that's what was keeping him alive.
Does it seem to have any information about like where the mellified man was stored or anything like that, or is this just like strictly an observational journal about this person?
Yeah, there's no detail about storage or anything like that. Fion and Basso, you both notice that there is a bee that has found its way down here that is crawling around Theodan's face now.
I'm just going to quietly observe it.
All right. I mean, it seems to be lapping at the sweat on Theodan's face, like sort of. I mean, I don't know. I said lapping like a bee has a tongue, but I don't think it quite works that way. But ingesting in some way. So it certainly looks very interested in whatever is coming out of Theodan's pores at this point.
Interesting. So I think Fionn will be like, "Don't move." And then we'll just like take his finger and reach out towards Theodan's face and then rub it against his face and lick it.
His face tastes like like the sweat or whatever is on your finger tastes sweet, almost like honey.
What was that for?
I think something may have happened to you in the passage. Do you feel odd?
No, I mean, other than the fact we're both down here and we're quickly running out of torches.
You taste a bit like honey.
Great pickup lines for Trophy Dark.
I will taste myself. Do I get the same sense?
Yeah, you definitely do.
All right, I was afraid it was a problem with you and not me.
No, that's certainly not the case.
Okay.
A second bee starts crawling around Theodan's face, and now you notice it, like you can feel it crawling around up there.
Did I notice where it came from?
Just seems to have drifted down the corridor from the same direction that you came from.
I'm assuming I don't notice these bees.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. That's what I meant. That you can now feel that you can feel some sort of insect crawling on your face.
Not knowing that it's a potentially venomous bee, I'll kind of swat one of them off.
Yeah. I think you swat it away fine. Like it falls to the ground. It's kind of broken, buzzing as it dies. The next bee that lands on your face has come from ahead of you. Those two previous ones seem to come from the way that you, like from back the way you came. But this new one has come from the direction that you want to be heading towards.
If there's nothing else for us to look at here, I would recommend that we continue moving. We don't know where that thing we saw is.
Fionn, at that, the melody in your head kind of resolves into clear lyrics again, and you hear, whoever's singing seems now to be singing directly to you, and they say that you're right, that it is time to come closer, and that if I can just see you, I can help you, I can reward you.
Did I get a sense of like the directionality of that sound? I mean, I know it's in my head, but like, do I get a sense of like where closer is?
Yes, it's absolutely clear to you that it means the direction that you're sort of headed in anyway.
Okay, then yeah, Fionn will get up and start to sort of gather his things and start to shuffle along that way, and then turn around and say, "Come on, we have to go."
Right.
I'm fine with that.
And assuming they let him lead, he is going to lead them directly towards where he thinks the sound is coming from, the singing is coming from.
Sure. So as you go on, you notice that the cisterns are engraved with sort of progressively older dates, and also more and more of them have names and epitaphs of some kind inscribed on them as well as they get older.
Like identifying names, or do they seem like person names?
Yeah, it seems to be the name of a person who is like, it looks like a tombstone is marked out on the cistern.
Are they? What are these cisterns made of? Are they like stone?
They're of stone.
Okay, and they don't have an obvious way to open them. It doesn't appear.
They appear to have been sealed in some way. It's not really clear how they can be opened.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, you could try and smash your way into one,
Mm-hmm.
but it looks like they're pretty substantial. It doesn't look like that would be an easy task.
Was there a name in the journal that we picked up?
There was not. They just refer to the person as the subject.
Okay.
Yeah. But as you continue, you do come to a cistern that is open. Its lid has been unfastened somehow and left to one side. Do any of you want to look inside?
I don't think Fionn is. I think Fionn is fixated on the singing.
Okay.
I'll give Basso first right of refusal for this one.
What's the date on this one? Like how
It's
old is it?
101 years old.
I'll take a look inside.
So it smells strongly of honey, and honey sort of drips from the rim. And deep down at the bottom of the cistern, you can see 2 fingers and some other odd scraps of flesh. All of them kind of almost glowing gold from being steeped in the sacred honey for 100 years.
I assume we brought something to put this kind of stuff in.
Bundle it up.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah.
And then are you continuing on ahead, or what's the plan?
I mean, we didn't come here just for a couple fingers, right? We want
We need the source.
Basso, can I ask, what will happen to your family if you die down here? Just out of curiosity.
I mean, I don't think it's a death sentence or anything, but it's probably a very hard life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the little girl who may or may not have survived this long back at camp, what about her?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think she's long for this world without a lot of help.
All right.
Yeah.
So not far past where where you find the open cistern, the tunnel, like where it's been dark down here and it's been the light of your torches that's been sort of illuminating things for you, you can see quite bright light. The tunnel, there's a point where light starts shining in the end of the tunnel, and that's the way that you want to head. Or that's the way that you think you need to go. As you push closer, it's clear that sunlight that beyond the end of this tunnel, so the ceiling or the roof opens up to the sky. Do you want to head out that way, or who's going to lead the way, I guess, is really the question. What's your marching order?
That's always a scary question. Does it seem like the singing is now behind us, or does
No,
it
it
actually?
definitely seems to be like coming from the way that you can see the light.
Oh, then I'm definitely leading, or I'm going to try to at least, unless anyone's stopping me.
I can't imagine anyone else just trying to stop you from staying in the lead.
Yeah.
All right. So the tunnel sort of opens up into a huge chalky excavation that is, like I say, it's kind of open to the sun. Must be around midday. It's very hot in here. It's an enormous, vast space. There are like maybe thousands and thousands of bees drifting like embers, and a ragged banner the color of bleached skin fluttering high overhead. There's a path from where the tunnel comes out that sort of spirals around this excavation down to the bottom, where workers in heavy leather garb attend to a massive. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce this word, so please correct me if you have a better idea. Dewar, spelt like this, Dewar. I'm just going to call that a Dewar. It's like a tank. If you Google image search it, you'll get an idea of what we're talking about. Maybe I'll just call it the tank for clarity. So kind of heavy iron tank sealed at the top. Or actually, this one is not iron. You can see through it. It's 2 layers of glass enclosing some sort of black muck, and inside a skeleton dressed in shorn flesh. Although again, surely not the flesh and bones of any human. Do you do or say anything?
The workers all appear to be human?
They do.
And they don't appear to notice us yet. Is that right?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
Do they give off vibes of being forced labor? Are they seemingly employed and here of their own free will? Can you tell one way or the other?
I mean, I don't think you can tell exactly. There is some sort of work song that they're singing. I don't know if that suggests to you forced labor or something voluntary. But they, there are different. It's hard to tell exactly what they're all doing. There are different kind of work like stations, I guess, set up at different points around this chamber. But everything seems to lead around and down towards that large tank at the bottom.
I assume there's no obvious way to get down there without them seeing us.
There's no way that's obvious to me, but I'm not a seasoned treasure hunter. Maybe some of you have some ideas.
I mean, we would need a distraction, right?
Oh yeah, I guess so.
Someone needs to grab their attention while someone else gets a hold of it.
Gets a hold of what specifically?
Oh, whatever's in the the doer.
Yeah, so I get the impression that doer is large, right? It's not. It has a basically human-sized skeleton inside of it, so it is larger than a person, right?
Yeah, that's right. I might offer that if any of you individually want to have a good look to try and assess the situation, that you might treat that as a risk roll.
Okay.
To try and figure out, anything useful that you can see in here. Do any of you want to take that on?
I mean, I'm sure. Yes.
All right. Okay, so so what you're trying to do is, see anything that might be useful or anything that you. It's almost like a perception check, I guess. You walk into the room, what can I see? Do I see any traps? So what could possibly go wrong, other players?
So I guess I'd like a little more clarity on what our goal here is. Ultimately, do we want do we want to get down to this thing and be able to check it out more closely?
So I guess that's not immediately clear to your characters, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
The song is certainly drawing you forward and down, the song that you hear.
Okay.
But apart from this tank, like you can see that there's workers doing all kinds of things, but I'm suggesting that, someone needs to take the time and effort to look more closely to try and figure out like exactly what sort of target you might find here.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
That answers the question.
So things that could go wrong definitely are that we are spotted and the workers are hostile.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know if we can do better than that. David, anything else that could go wrong?
What are the workers doing? Are they mining and excavating? Like they're actually clearing parts of this cavern? Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, I guess it's not totally clear from where you are what they're doing. It doesn't look like mining work. Whatever it is, it's clearly hot and sweaty, quite laborious. Some of them seem to be carrying mason's tools and things like that, but you're not really sure what actual work they're doing.
Okay. The best I can come up with is what Daniel said.
I think sometimes it's okay just to go with the obvious thing. So do you have a relevant skill?
Tactics, maybe?
Yeah, sure, why not? And does anyone want to offer a devil's bargain? Something that goes wrong regardless of the outcome. I'm tempted to suggest as a devil's bargain that you don't attract the attention of the workers. Well, you may or may not attract the attention of the workers below, but another worker approaches from the direction that you came, and you're forced to deal with him before he can raise the alarm or draw the attention of the others.
Okay.
All right. And do you want to add a dark die to risk if you're risking your mind or body?
No. It went well last time when I didn't.
All right.
Let's stick with that.
Two light die. 2 light dice. All right. So that's a 5. That's a success with a complication. You can, if you want, re-roll with a dark die to try and get a 6. Is that something you're interested in?
I'll take a 5.
Yeah, I figured you're right. So your immediate problem is, well, hang on. Let's describe the success first. So, the main thing that you see. Sorry, I'm just shuffling my notes. Is that at the bottom of the pit on the far side, there is a group of workers who are stacking wax paper packages in a little cart. And you catch glimpses of what are clearly fragments of mellified man, digits, limbs, viscera with translucent gold-white flesh, and any one of those packages worth some 100 gold. That cart by itself, more gold than you've ever imagined, and that's just one cart. Wherever that's going or wherever it's come from, the incalculable wealth, and that's the main thing that you see. The complication is that the worker who's just walked up behind you is thrusting a dagger at you. What do you do?
I mean, I've got an arrow left.
Yeah. You want to
seems
use
to be
your arrow?
asking for it. Yeah.
All right. I don't think you need to make a risk roll for that. You're skilled with bows. He's just a worker. You lodge the arrow deep in his guts, and he falls quietly to the ground. But you're out of arrows now. The arrow is busted. So what's the plan going to be? You can see the source of all the, you have a solid lead on where the wealth is here, but it's hard to see how you're going to get down to it without drawing the attention of some of these guards. I guess you now have a knife if you want to take it from the worker where he fell.
Yeah. I mean, there's either distraction or disguise, I guess. Those are the two options that occur to me.
Yeah, so I guess it feels like the main option here is it's possible that like this is the source of the mellified man, right? Or this leads to the source, but it also looks like there's a closer, more accessible, and still pretty overwhelming treasure that we could go for instead in one of these carts, right?
Are the carts manned by one person at a time?
There's about a half dozen workers who are loading jars onto this cart.
Mm-hmm.
If you wait and watch, then eventually you'll see just two workers lead the cart out of the chamber down through a doorway at the base.
Because I don't suppose I would know this, but out of character, I mean, Daniel, you've got the bind ritual. If you could just paralyze one of them, we could just walk up, take their stuff, and leave, and they would be unable to act.
Right. Yeah. I think probably the thing we need to do now is have the conversation about whether we want to try to get out of here with a cart of mellified man, or whether we want to delve deeper to try to get to the source. So Fiona is immediately going to start to go into problem-solving mode about getting all the way down and moving towards the source, because that's where the source of this voice is coming from. So he's going to be like, I don't know, Basso, great job. And points towards the man you felled. Like, we just need a couple more of those uniforms, and we should be able to just walk our way right down there.
So I guess there's a couple of things that you see that might help with this. So one is that because the room kind of descends, mm-hmm. You'll be approaching anyone that you approach from above, and the sunlight is so bright and glaring mm-hmm. that it's going to be like relatively difficult for them to look clearly up at you.
Okay.
You also see that there is, like, if you were to follow the trail down in its big spiral, the first group of workers that you would encounter is just 4 men, all occupied with whatever they're doing. Probably one of the smaller clusters of workers that you can see in here. So if you were to try and overcome them somehow, that looks like, a less daunting prospect than some of the larger groups below.
Okay. So obviously, Fiona, knowing nothing about tactics, right? Because he's just a surgeon. He's like, Vasa, you could dress up as one of them, go down to meet them, take out the other 4, and then we could dress up as them and continue on our way, right?
I don't like the idea of facing 4 men at once. Those odds don't sound favorable to me.
Fine, I can be responsible for at least 1. Do you think you can find it in you to take care of 3?
Dan, what's your sort of take on this situation?
See, my specialties lie in, larceny, in the word escapes me, but if there was a way I could perhaps talk to one of them, I might be able to elicit some kind of leverage, over them. I suppose we could try to kill 4 of them, but that's, if anything goes wrong, then that's it, guys. I think that's it for us.
Well, fine then. You could dress up as one of them and go down and have a conversation.
Well, I guess we do have one uniform.
It does look like it would fit Teodan quite nicely.
Do these workers have any identifying insignia, body language, or do they all kind of look the same? Is it a disparate kind of?
They all look quite youthful. That's probably the thing that stands out the most. They're all singing like this same kind of work song. They're all dressed in the same leather aprons, but they're not. Other than that, there's no real distinctive markings or anything like that you can notice about them.
I see. Well, it's not going to hurt me to dress up as one of them. Worst case scenario, I mean, why not? So I'll don the garb of the one that we put an arrow through. And then my thinking is to see if I can simply ask one of them where the source of all the malified man is.
All right. Basso and Fionn, are you supportive of this plan, or what's your feeling about this?
Better him than me. I like it better that it's a better plan than me trying to just jump 4 guys at once.
So it feels to me that if you were a person who was wearing this outfit, you would probably either know the answer to your question, or you would know that you don't know the answer to your question. So I'm a little concerned that might be an awkward tactic to use.
It's a suspicious question to ask. What we could do is, if we can get sufficient, I mean, I know we're kind of fresh out of arrows at this point, but if we have some kind of weapon or other item that we could threaten with, I could go out there, at the very least, talk one of them through, whatever verbal subterfuge I need to utilize, into coming back to us, at which point we jump him, and I have a ritual which allows me to enforce a promise with a curse. If we can extract a promise from this guy, then we can, at least maybe try to intimidate him into giving us information or something like that.
So you're thinking of separating one from the herd and then somehow coercing him into helping us?
Yes, precisely.
I'm much more amenable to that plan. And worst case scenario, if we do that, then there will only be 3 for Basso to kill. That should be well within your abilities, right?
All right. Well.
So,
wish me luck.
Teardown will approach. Basso and Fionn, are you following like relatively close behind? Are you going to wait back at the top of the entrance to this chamber? Like, where are you going to be while this happens?
Feels like we want to be a little distance away from them, and I guess Teoden would sort of try to separate the person and lead them up to us, and then we could, we would want a little distance so we could have whatever conversations or whatever we needed to have. So I think some distance would be good.
Yeah. Okay.
Fionn suggests watching out for his own behind.
All right. So Teoden, you walk up to this group of workers, and then what?
I think that the more I talk, the more suspicious I'm going to sound. So I'm just going to be very direct and to the point, and I'm just going to confidently say, hey, I need one of you to come over here. We have some more things we need to get done. Can I just borrow one of you for a minute?
Well, I think this will have to be a risk roll. So you're hoping to convince him to come without drawing the attention of the others. Basically, is that fair to say?
I would say that I'm actually I'm not like sneaking up to one guy, tapping him on the shoulder and saying, "Hey, you specifically." I'm kind of addressing everybody in as casual and non-intrusive a way as possible. Just being like, "Hey, I just need one person. Any volunteers? One person. Come with me."
Okay. Other players, what could possibly go wrong?
I think one funny possible thing that can go wrong is that all of them come.
Uh-huh. They demand that you join whatever work they're doing rather than coming with you. Brian, anything else that could possibly go wrong here?
Well, I mean, we haven't mentioned the obvious that they just see right through the disguise.
Okay. Also a good one. All right. You do have a relevant skill, so that's one light die. Does anyone want to propose a devil's bargain?
Sure. I think that the devil's bargain is they see the bloody tear from the arrow that was thrust into him, and you have to explain that.
Yeah, okay. I think that works as a devil's bargain, just making them more suspicious, but still willing to go along. Would you take that devil's bargain?
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
All right. And would you like to add a dark die if you want to risk your mind or body to succeed?
So right now I'm at 2 light die and 0 dark?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have a question while you're thinking about that.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any reason to initially roll a dark die and not just wait until you rolled your 2 light dice so that you can reroll?
Like, it's definitely the best thing to do mechanically to wait. Sometimes it just makes sense in the narrative that you clearly are risking your mind or body, so
Okay.
It doesn't really make sense to hold that off.
Well, I think I think what you say rings true. I think I'm definitely risking my body here.
Yeah.
So sure, we'll up the ante a little bit and we'll go to 3 light, 1 dark, I think.
Sorry, 2 light, 1 dark, right?
I'm sorry, is it 2? It's 1 for the devil's bargain, 1 for the relevant skill.
Yeah, that's it. Those are the only 2 light dice you can ever have.
Okay, so if I add I think I just am getting the rules straight in my head. If I have the dark die for risking my body, there's not a light die that comes with that. That's just something that I'm adding. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
That's right.
Okay, yeah, that's still fine with me. We'll do 2 light, 1 dark.
Great.
Okay.
All right. So that's 5. Your ruin will increase by 1. And that's a success with a complication. So let's see. So you do convince one of the workers to come with you. But as he starts to get up and lead you, like, come the way that you've directed, it's true, you are eligible for reduction rolls now if you want to betray your teammates. He does notice the bloody hole in your apron, and he starts, trying to stop you, trying to convince you that you should come down and get some attention. It looks like you've been hurt. And the complication is that, he eventually does just come with you because you've succeeded at your role. But one of the other workers goes off to fetch the nurse to get someone to help you out. But the worker comes back with you towards where Basso and Fiona are waiting. What do you do as this worker walks up towards you?
I expect Basso to have a plan.
Does Basso have a plan?
I mean, we were just gonna jump the guy and intimidate him into. I mean, I have a knife. I'm gonna hold the knife to his throat and let you guys do the talking.
All right.
Yeah, so I think that as Basso gets ready to accost to this guy, I think that Fionn is going to make a noise accidentally.
What sort of accidental noise?
I mean, like, so I don't know, like maybe he stumbles when he tries to come around whatever they're hiding behind or something like that, you know, and kicks some rocks or something. Just something that feels very accidental, but is hopefully enough to catch the guy's attention.
All right. And I assume that will be a reduction roll?
Oh, yeah, totally. It's another failed one, probably. Here we go. Boop. So, I've done it! I've done it!
All right. So I'm just checking, but I believe that means you succeed and nobody, and Basso doesn't notice. So Basso, you can see that you're just about to very easily get the drop on this guy, but the sudden noise from your inexplicably clumsy companion alerts him, like just before you would have been able to get the knife in. And he jerks, like, what's he holding? Like a chisel maybe or something like that. Like not really a weapon, but something that he can use enough to turn this into a fight. And you're going to have to make... I mean, you're going to have to make some sort of a risk roll here, whether you want to kill him, subdue him, like what would your goal be?
I mean, the thought was to capture him and somehow force him to aid us. We definitely could use a local guide. So, I mean, if I...
So, just to subdue him, to disarm him and
yeah.
All right. What could possibly go wrong? Anyone?
Kill him.
Oh, yeah, could kill him. He could kill you.
He could kill you.
You could draw the attention of all the other workers in the room. Anything else? Those seem like the main ones. You could fall to your death. You're quite high up. All right. Do you have a relevant skill?
I mean, it still would just be tactics, I guess, is the only...
Yeah, I think tactics make sense, like something to do with how you fight. Does anyone want to propose a devil's bargain? I mean, I'm open to other ideas, but I think maybe the devil's bargain is that regardless of whether you succeed or fail, he like somehow drives the chisel deep into the flesh of your weapon hand, and you're going to be unable to use that hand for anything after this fight. Does anyone want to suggest a different devil's bargain?
I'm fine with that one. You should definitely take it too. Like we're right by all kinds of mellified man. Like you just go take a snack. You'll be fine.
That's true. That is a good point.
I mean, we have a well-intentioned. We have a well-intentioned doctor who will be able to do first aid.
What could go wrong?
I mean, I kind of want to just injure my hand so that I can't be just forced to do the work for everyone. So you're gonna have to pitch in now because my hand, I can't. Sure.
All right. Take it. And I think that this is one where you'll need to put in the dark die because your body certainly is at risk. So 2 light and 1 dark. All right. The highest one is a light die. So that's success with a complication. All right. So you subdue the worker. He does jab this chisel so deeply into your hand, like opening this huge gash. it's clear that hand's going to be all but useless to you from now on. Let's take our last break here, and we'll come back and talk about what the complication might be. We'll come back just at like 5 past the hour, if that's good for everyone. All right. Everyone good? Cool. So you have subdued one of the workers. Basso is bleeding badly from a huge gash in an almost useless hand. What do you want to do?
Let's search the worker first.
Yeah. He's not really carrying anything of note, maybe a few copper pieces.
Okay. I would definitely like to see the Basso's hand. I can't have him unable to perform his duties.
So as you sort of patch him up, the worker will be like, what do you want with me? Let me go. Get out of here before it's too late. Just a kind of vaguely threatening monologue. Punctuated with notes of fear, but generally quite boastful, or even threatening. Do you say or ask him anything?
I for my part will say very frankly to him that it's nothing personal against you. We're just here to find the source of the what is it called? It's not the malleable man. Mallefied man. Yeah. We're just here to find the source of the mallefied man. Tell us where that is, and well, we won't have to kill you.
He kind of coughs and laughs a little, and he says, "Mallefied man, is that all? We're so far beyond mallefied man now. Have all the mallefied man you want."
Well, what is there beyond mallefied man? That's what everybody has come here for.
He will kind of look down towards that Duar, the tank that's at the base at the bottom, and he says, "Do you think that's a man in there?"
Obviously not. What is it, mallefied bee person? What is that?
I think it's what they're keeping alive with the mallefied man.
It was an angel when we found it. What is it
that,
now? Who can say?
Is that what's singing?
Singing?
Same response for me. Singing? What are you talking about?
Actually, Theodan and also Basso, now that you're in this chamber, you can hear the singing. Like, it's so faint that you hadn't necessarily consciously observed it. But this, when Fionn mentions it, you do hear it. Hard to figure out exactly where it's coming from. But yeah, the beautiful, alluring melody that you'd heard earlier.
But this guy seems surprised by that.
He doesn't hear a singing, no.
Interesting. Fionn will go back to bandaging Basso's hand.
I'll look back to the others and say, well, what do you think? Should we take off with, as he says, as much mallefied man as we want? Or do we want this so-called angel that he's talking about?
Why don't you go down there and take the angel? Take what you can get. Just let me go.
Oh, come now. I know a trap when I hear one. I'll throw the ball back into Brian and Daniel's court. What do you folks think?
It seems to me that we are in a position where we could walk away with enough mellified man to make us all wealthy. I don't see any particular reason why we don't take that.
You all notice that the chamber seems to be getting hotter.
Like unnaturally hotter?
I mean, the sun was already beating down on this chamber pretty hard. It's hard to think of a natural reason for the chamber to get any hotter than it already was. But yeah, the sweat is running now quite thick down this guy's face as well as your own. Probably a few more bees crawling over Theodan's face as the sweat gets thicker.
Why is it getting so hot? I'll ask the worker.
He shrugs.
Okay. And where's the Malified Angel? Just the one down there? Or is there something deeper?
Just the one. It's not easy to catch an angel, you know. Or to skin it.
What? What do you think, Theoden? What are you feeling?
I'm not here to save the world. I'm here to make enough money to get the flaxen hounds off my back. So, if selling a bit of Malified Man is going to do that for me, then that's what I think I'll do.
And you, Basso?
That's what I came here for.
The man at your feet looks quite confused and says, "Why is it so hot in here?"
I'm gonna look down to where the doer is.
Yeah, so the dewar is like made of these multiple layers of glass, so you can see through it, and you can see that it seems to be bubbling inside, or almost like it's coming to the boil. And from out the way that you came, you hear a sound like stone cracking. It sounds like some of the cisterns are boiling over or bursting as the liquids inside them heat.
Do we see anything obvious connecting that doer to like the system of cisterns or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
So as far as we can tell, it's an unrelated, or like it's not directly connected.
There's no physical connection that you can observe.
Okay. Do we see anyone acting like this is an unusual occurrence?
Yeah, the workers are moving much faster now. They all seem confused, somewhat disoriented. They're moving back and forth away from that tank that has the angel in it.
Okay.
There's clear distress and disorder.
So Fionn will definitely point this out to everyone else and say, whatever we're going to do, we should do it quickly.
And as you say that, the dewar explodes.
No!
Broken iron and burning sugar erupts throughout the cavern. It doesn't quite reach the height that you are, but you can see workers, their skin melting away as chunks of this molten honey land on their bodies. The bees swarm towards the honey that's erupting everywhere, but then their bodies also just dissolve as they come into contact with its heat. The cisterns audibly boiling and bleeding over, and the angel, the skinless angel, flayed by the workers, rising through this kind of apocalyptic whirl and lashing out at the workers, killing people left and right as it sort of rises. And Fionn?
Yes?
You realize that the singing is coming from above you now. In fact, all of you can hear the singing coming from above you now.
Oh, interesting.
I mentioned that hanging high across this chamber was a kind of banner. But you realize now that that's not a banner. That is
actual flesh.
It's the skin of the angel, rustling and twitching, singing, covered in fact with mouths and eyes, some feathers. It's been leading you here, and now its body's so badly mutilated, it needs somebody else to wear it out of here. And the song tells all of you that it's no longer possible to take the mellified man. The fire has burnt it away. But if you wear me, grant me blood and warmth, I will grant your wishes.
And there's only one skin, right?
Only skin for one.
Only skin for one. All right.
Fionn, why is your drive so much more important than the other treasure hunters' drives?
Oh, because Fionn is basically defined by selfishness. There is literally nothing more important to Fionn than Fionn. So,
all right. And what are you going to do right now? If you don't act now, one of them is going to get to wear the skin.
Right. Well, I'm definitely. So, you said it's above us. Is it just like it is hanging by something? Like how would one get to it?
You can climb up towards it. You can climb the walls of the chamber.
The walls. Okay. But that's the only way. There's no. Well, I know that Basso's hand is in a bit of a ruin, so he's not going to be much of a climber. And I'm not super convinced that Theoden is a particularly physical sort. So I feel like I got a bit of a head start. I think I'm just going to go for it.
All right. I'll come back to you and just check in a sec.
Mm-hmm.
Theoden, you've heard the same thing. You have the same sort of realization that only one of you can wear this skin, and you see Fionn start to climb the wall towards it. If he gets there first, you'll never satisfy your drive. What do you want to do?
See, it's tricky because you've got that bind ritual, so all you have to do is just tell me to stay put, and then I'm likely to get taken by the honeybees.
That would be a shame.
Sure would. So if I'm going to do anything, I have to do it without being directly confrontational. And I don't even have a bow and arrow.
Nobody does, sadly.
Nobody does.
I factored that into my calculations.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to come back to you? Do you want to think about it for a sec?
Yeah, I'll have to strategize for a minute.
All right. So, Basso, your better hand is kind of hanging limply at your side at this point. But, even with your offhand, you could probably take a leech, right? What do you want to do?
Yeah, I at least have I have a weapon. I have a knife. If he's gonna go ahead of me, then that it gives me a nice back to stab.
All right. Well, yeah, I think that I'll resolve Basso first, and then see if Fionn is still in a position to climb.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So it's a risk roll for Basso. What you're trying to do is stab your companion in the back. What could possibly go wrong? Anyone?
I think narratively, at least, it would make sense that Fionn would at least temporarily be able to bind him, with a ritual or something like that.
Maybe the bees overwhelm him.
we've got this kind of foreshadowing with his nose about him turning cartilage. I mean, perhaps he succeeds in the stab, but his hand and arm fold in. I mean, that's not too graphic. So it's not a killing blow necessarily. It just exposes him for a counterattack.
Poor
I do like
Basso.
the idea that all the cartilage in his body starts to melt.
Bad timing.
Or, I mean, there's also the worker who you had previously grappled and subdued, who is now free. All right, so that's a good range of things that could go wrong. Does anyone want to suggest a devil's bargain?
Oh man. I was going to suggest that the angel thinks that you're her enemy. But that would make more sense with Theoden, because Theoden's wearing the uniform, the worker's clothes. So I'll save that one. I don't know that I have any other really good ideas.
I mean, I'll check if this is okay with Theon, but I was thinking about a devil's bargain that Theon manages to get off like part of the effect of the bind spell, regardless of whether you succeed or fail.
Sure.
And maybe like the left-hand side of your body is paralyzed by the spell, regardless of whether you succeed or fail. Would you take that devil's bargain?
Well, no, I don't think so.
All right, so I think you'll get one light die for tactics. Doesn't sound like there's a devil's bargain on the table. But do you want to take a dark die to risk your mind or body?
Sure.
All right, so one light and one dark.
I am rooting for you, Basso.
So that is a failure and things get worse, or you can add a dark die and re-roll the whole thing.
All right. Sure. Let's add a dark die.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Right. So I think that is your ruin increasing by 1, and a success with a complication. So you sink your knife deep into Theon's back. It doesn't, maybe not enough to increase his ruin, but certainly enough to stop him from climbing any higher until he sorts this out. Your ruin increasing by 1, I think the symptom of that will be the feeling of more of the cartilage in your body starting to melt away inside you. I don't know if anyone has a better grasp than I do of where exactly cartilage is located in the body, but I think that might be your ears and your ribs.
I mean, lots of joints are...
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, it's not completely debilitating yet, but it's just an excruciating pain at each of those points.
It's just horrifically bad arthritis.
Right.
Throughout your body, essentially, immediately. Yeah.
And there's a complication, which is going to be that the worker who you'd previously subdued is grabbing at you, and specifically he's grabbed with both hands at the hand that holds your knife. So he's like fighting with you over the knife right now. Now I'll come back to the two of you. But Theodan, did you decide what you want to do while this is going on?
Is there a vessel or a jar or a receptacle that they might have at one point had reserved for Malified Man, or anything along those lines that is within?
Not within arm's reach. Like, at this point, the workers aren't going to stop you if you want to race down to the bottom and try and grab a jar or an armful of Malified Man. The problem is that there is still exploding, boiling honey throughout that space. So it's a very dangerous area to run into.
Well, that's my hope, though. To be transparent, my hope is that now that Basso and Fion are locked in melee combat, I might be able to throw boiling honey at both of them.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely make a risk roll to go down and retrieve enough of the boiling honey to bring back and use as a weapon.
Just as long as they're distracted with each other. I feel like that's the only thing I've got, because I can't beat either one of them in single combat. I mean, Basso, because he's Basso, and Fion, because he's got the bind spell. So this is the most trickery I can pull out of my sleeve right now.
All right. That sounds great. So I will come back to you for a risk roll to do that in just a sec. Fion, I just want to get a ruin roll for you to see the effect of the dagger. So just a single dark die to see whether your ruin increases from being stabbed in the back.
I have not been ruined.
Not ruined yet.
Not yet.
All right. So a risk roll to go and retrieve enough of the boiling honey to use as a weapon against your fellow treasure hunters. What could possibly go wrong?
I mean, this pot of boiling honey could just like burst in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing that these days.
It's very in vogue.
Mm-hmm.
You could be swarmed by the bees that are moving everywhere.
Yeah. The honey that is inside you could also begin to boil.
What a good one. All right. The angel could kill you. Just throw that one out there as well. All right. Do you have a relevant skill?
Almost certainly not. I have herbs, chemistry, bartering, and lying.
Yeah, probably not.
I think it'd be a stretch, yeah.
Would the argument that maybe chemistry would allow you to have knowledge of how to deal with hazardous materials?
Like choosing a
stretch.
Well, I mean, you would be dealing with like open flames and boiling liquids if you were doing potion making and those kinds of things. But I mean, I don't know. It does feel like a stretch.
I think it's a stretch, so I'm going to say no for this one. Does anyone want to propose a devil's bargain?
I'm super invested in your internal honey starting to boil. So I think that's all I've got in my brain right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think like maybe the devil's bargain would be that regardless of success or failure, you're badly burned by the hot honey, whether that's an internal or an external phenomenon.
Well, theoretically, if I don't get that angel skin on me, I'm dead anyway. So what's a little bit of burning to this?
Exactly.
I mean, this is all just a transient skin that I intend to shed as soon as possible anyway. So that I'll take it.
All right. So that's one light die, and I think because you're going to be burned regardless, that's going to be a dark die because you're risking your body.
Okay.
So one light and one dark die.
Okay. And I'm at almost max ruin, I guess. So we'll see how this plays out.
All right. So a 3 is a failure with things getting worse. Do you want to add a dark die and reroll?
Sure do. Let's try it one more time.
Ooh!
There it is.
All right. So I will come back to talk about what happens to you.
Yep.
But you're welcome to think about how you would like to leave the game, if that's something that you'd like to consider. There were some good suggestions in there. So, Fian, you've just been stabbed in the back. As you sort of fall from the wall that you were trying to scale, you see that Basso now is sort of, caught up in melee with this worker. And it's clear that it was Basso who stabbed you, like you don't have any doubt about that. What do you want to do?
So, do I feel as though I am too injured to continue to try to climb?
You can probably try to climb, but you may need to deal with Basso to be able to actually, get anywhere.
Okay, so Basso is not completely occupied with this.
Like, you've seen Basso deal with this guy pretty handily before.
Okay.
You don't think he's going to occupy Basso for that long.
Fair enough.
It's probably also the best opportunity you're going to get, because Basso is at least a little distracted at the moment.
Right.
And, quite close to the ledge.
It's just right. So I think that I think I'm gonna try to. Is like a ritual something that I can just do now?
So you'll be making a risk roll, but yeah, you can just do it.
Yeah, I think I'll try a ritual. I have so many juicy options. Like, I could try to empty Basso of his fluids. Or I could try to push Basso's spirit from his body. But I think I have a soft spot for Basso and the pain that he's endured. So I think I'm just going to try to bind him.
All right. So it will be a risk roll, just like any other risk roll. So What you're trying to do is hold him in place with this magical ritual.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to suggest something that could go wrong? I think that the use of magic, or the attempted use of magic, might attract the attention of the vengeful body of the former angel that is laying hot death over the whole cavern. Or Basso might stab you again.
That feels like a very Basso thing to do.
I was going to say... No, go ahead.
I was going to say, Basso's struggling with this worker, but if you start casting, the worker might see you as a bigger threat than Basso all of a sudden too.
David, were you going to say something?
Well, yeah, I mean, I will say that out of all the options, just getting stabbed again is the one that I kind of like most. It just feels the most on point. But I mean, there's always the possibility that the spell is accidentally reflected back at him. The worker gets in the way at the last minute, and the worker is struck with the spell. But I mean, those are not my favorite options. I'll put them out there though.
Cool. So I don't think that you have a relevant skill for casting a ritual.
Okay.
Do any of your skills apply?
Not that I can think of.
So like some people have a skill called like sorcery or rituals or something.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, no.
All right. Does anyone want to offer a devil's bargain? Maybe the devil's bargain that I would offer is, regardless of success or failure, a new sort of gusher of hot honey starts spraying across the wall high above you in the exact place that you would need to climb to get to the skin, so that there'll be no way to reach the skin without burning yourself. Does anyone else want to propose another devil's bargain? Maybe I'll just offer that one then.
Wow, that seems super antithetical to my ultimate goal here. So what happens if I don't take that and I don't have a skill? Am I just rolling one dark die?
That's right. And you won't be able to re-roll because the dark die will be the highest.
Automatically the highest, right? But I could theoretically roll a 6 on my dark die. How amazing would that be?
That would be great.
All right, I'm just gonna roll a dark die. Yeah, I'm just going to roll the dark die. What do you think about that? All right, here we go. Nope. That's definitely not it.
So you fail and things get worse. All right. So Basso, you feel that he has tried to cast this ritual at you. The kind of magical energy washes over you. Has anyone ever tried to cast a spell on you before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that rare in this world, right? I mean,
yeah.
Probably.
All right. I mean, I think it still feels weird and bad enough to trigger a ruin roll. So just one dark die as this kind of eldritch energy washes over you.
Yes.
Oh. So yeah, your ruin increases. Your skin starts breaking where around the points where your cartilage is liquefying and sprays out. Smelling, stinking, probably burning as well, quite hot. I think it probably strikes the worker who's been grappling with you and knocks him back over the ledge. He falls, giving off a big Wilhelm scream to his death. And I think that will also call for a ruin roll from Theon, who has just seen his friend burst with liquefying cartilage. 4. Okay. So
Fiona's an old hat at this ruin thing.
Holding it together quite well.
Unruinable.
Basso, what do you want to do at your former friend who just tried to bind you with magic?
I mean, send him flying after that worker. Give him just a good yank.
All right.
You can't send him tumbling.
What? So that will be a risk roll. So you're trying to throw him over. What could go wrong? You both go over.
That's what I suggest. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just it's such a good one.
Yeah.
Does anyone have another suggestion for something that could go wrong? All right, let's just go with that. Your relevant skill, I guess tactics is still going to count. No, I'm not sure. I'll let you decide. Do you want to does anyone want to propose a devil's bargain? I think regardless of outcome, like just looking at the clock, this is probably going to be our last risk roll for the game. So if you have a devil's bargain, now is the time.
Yeah.
Maybe there's no devil's bargain.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not really seeing a devil's bargain. I like as a negative as a failure state, I guess. I would like to suggest, in line with he goes over the edge. I think maybe just Fiona is holding on to both of his arms, and with his weakened cartilage, just rips them both off of his body.
Oh my god!
That way, he literally cannot climb up to the thing.
That is an amazing devil's bargain. I was wondering if the devil's bargain might be that you succeed in throwing him over or not, but you see that one of the workers has already reached the skin. Do you want to take any of these devil's bargains? All of them are open if you want to pick one.
No, I don't think so. I think we'll just roll and see.
All right. So
I don't think tactics apply. I think tactics maybe made sense when I was waiting for the right moment after he turned his back.
All right. But so it sounds like just a dark die then.
I think so.
3. You fail, and it gets worse. So I think, as we discussed, the failure outcome is that both of you go over the side. You fall like many hundreds of feet, bones snapping as you bounce off the sides of the rock face towards the bottom. I'll come back to you to resolve just your last moments in a sec. But Teodan, did you decide what ultimately happened to you?
I want to indulge Daniel's request for the honey sweat to be my undoing. So I imagine that there is a scene as I grab some kind of like hard iron receptacle, like a large bucket or something like that, a big old pail. I'm kind of running up towards where the honey boils are, flying off from the flayed angel. And as I get closer and closer, I can feel my skin getting hotter and hotter, but I'm not quite to the, where the honey is coursing just yet. So I'm having to go closer and closer. And as I go closer, you see these little boiling kind of pustules like of flesh pop off as I get closer and closer. But this is I either make this work or I die, so I keep going and keep going until eventually, after an escalating graphic description of my face and other parts of my skin, what'll ultimately happen is I'll kind of stumble up to where the honey is, kind of like collapse onto the ground in an effort to scoop it up in my pail. And then just like the rest of my flesh will do that thing from the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And it will be my own skin that collapses into the pail as the rest of me just liquefies. And that'll be it for me.
Amazing. So what I would like to suggest is the ending for Basso and Fionn is that your bodies come to rest at the bottom of this great chamber. Still kind of locked together, like still holding each other. And certainly you would have died, except that your heads both land submerged in a pool of melted, mellified flesh. Not enough to actually heal your wounds, but enough to stop you from dying. And so your broken bodies will rest there, locked together, unable to stand or move away, burning indefinitely until someone else succeeds where you failed. And I think that will be the end of our game for today. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
I would love to just do a quick round of stars and wishes. I guess I'm not totally sure how wishes work in a one-shot, but maybe just a quick round of stars and then any other feedback that you want to give. I think my star, it was going to be something else, but David's description of Theodan's demise easily just jumped like right into that front rank. That was quite incredible. But generally, I just wanted to give a star for how enthusiastically everyone embraced their certain doom. It was really fun. David, do you want to offer a star?
Oh my gosh. I'm just trying to. I normally try to think of these ahead of time, but I was so invested in the game and so locked into every moment. I literally forgot to think of stars for people. So I guess that's my star to you, Shane. Is it was that engaging of a game that I completely forgot this was part of it. Yeah, I don't know. The joke that comes to mind is this is the darkest game of Honey Heist I've ever played.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's cool about Trophy, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, is that bees are one of the major, monstrous species. So it has all the normal, fantasy creatures, and then, goblins, Feyborn, beast-bitten, whatever, and then bees. There's just a major monstrous species of bees everywhere. So plenty of horrible honey heist to be had.
Right. Oh my gosh. I suppose, just first, Shane, thank you for doing the one shot. I've never played the system before. This was an incredibly great amount of fun, and the atmosphere really built from scene to scene. Like every time we moved to the next level of the dungeon, the ante got upped, and the dramatic reveal that the flesh, the banner was actually, flesh, and now we have to get to it. That was just such a great twist at the end. I just really enjoyed the way that you described it. Daniel, I think that you played the conniving, backstabbing doctor in a way that I envied. I thought that was really great characterization. And Brian, I thought you were a wonderful, almost kind of foil to Daniel and I, because between the two of us with our kind of backstabby schemes, you were just kind of like the good guy who had completely pure intentions. And I think it was nice to have a party that wasn't completely just a bunch of like Cohen brothers like jerks, who were completely selfish. So I really appreciated you having, if not a warmer character than the rest of us, at least one who was a little bit more good-hearted. I think that that's a nice thing to have in such dark, cynical games as this one. So those would be my stars, I guess.
Thanks very much. Daniel?
Well, first of all, definitely a star for Shane. That was amazing. Thank you very much for introducing me to Trophy and doing that so smoothly and so well. I never felt like I was lost with the the mechanics or anything like that. I felt like I always knew what was going on and what was at risk and those sorts of things, which is not always the case when I do one shots with systems I'm not familiar with. So thank you very much for that. And I definitely everyone's characters were great. I definitely want to give a star to Brian. Just there was something about Basso just sort of being like this stoic brick of a man that just kept carrying on regardless. And then when you said that you wanted Basso's hand to get hurt just so that he could stop doing everything everyone told him to do, I just thought that was amazing. I don't know. It just made me laugh a lot. That was great. So, yeah, those are my stars.
Thanks very much. And Brian?
Yeah, stars all around. I had a really good time, and yeah, I guess if I was to give out a specific individual star to just Daniel just getting straight to 5 ruin on his very first roll and just like, okay, that's what I know what I'm doing like the rest of the time and just going for it, like just messing with us, the rest of us, as much as possible. That's great. And yeah.
All right. Thanks very much, everyone. I'm just going to end the recording.